The truth is, people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. What do you think separates the leaders that people tolerate compared to the leaders people love to work for?
And they always say, no, but Roland, you're from Google. Tell us the secret sauce. This is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
If you don't have your 80% in order, it doesn't mean shit.
This is something that a lot of leaders don't do.
I always encourage leaders to say, let's assume good intent. You can build a company where people thrive, which is based on trust. Cynicism is poison for your company. A big misconception when it comes to this topic is that being empathetic means you're soft. If you don't make space for that real human connection, I think you're going to lose in your engagement score, if you will. But the starting point is you're not a therapist. You don't need to fix anything for that other person. We're their employer and we have a duty of care, but there's a limit to that.
Welcome to the 7 People Podcast, your guide to creating irresistible organizations.
And this episode, we're going back to the core of leadership, the beautiful basics of how to be a good boss. And why this topic? Because we believe a good leader isn't about the fancy frameworks or buzzwords. It's about doing the simple things really well. Clarity, showing up with empathy, and showing up with consistency. When leaders get those basics right, everything else from performance to well-being follows more naturally. And the numbers back it up. According to Gallup, 70% of team engagements can be traced back to the manager. The truth is, people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. We invited Roland Grootenboer, a fellow HR nerd, to back us up on this topic. Roland has built an impressive career from his time at Google to writing the book, het boek waarvan je baas niet wilt dat je het leest. The book which your boss don't want you to read. Today, he advises founders and management teams on how to build and scale companies where people truly thrive. So, Roland, welcome to this month's episode.
Wow, quite an introduction.
Yes, I know. And I actually also have a very difficult question for you to start with.
Let's do it.
So when you look back at all the leaders you work with, what do you think separates the leaders that people tolerate compared to the leaders people love to work for?
Yeah, that's quite a nuance and quite a big difference, like being tolerated or actually being celebrated. Yeah, good question. I think if I have to name one thing, it would be empathy. And I think this sounds fluffy, but it actually isn't. Like we have quite some studies that, and we can name one in the show notes that from Harvard Business Review that was quite wide and broad. And it was quite consistent that if you look at what people are looking for in a leader, it's actually these soft traits that make a huge difference. And I think it's also a trait that's very hard to learn when it comes to empathy. Having a feeling for what's going on, what's really going on in the room, in a team, in a company, that makes a big difference because to your point, people aren't leaving jobs, they aren't leaving companies, they're leaving bosses.
Yeah.
And this makes, this is a key.
And I can imagine if empathy isn't like your natural way to go, like what are then little things you can do as a leader that helps you show that you're empathic, even though it's maybe a bit like played or staged?
Yeah, I think, and this is one of the beautiful things about our job, like bringing stuff back that if it doesn't come naturally or because we're busy and going from meeting to meeting, from email to email, bringing stuff back into structures and procedures does help. You can organize empathy.
Really?
You can put that on top of your one-on-one agenda.
Yeah.
And create a space where you make a little bit of time for, hey, let's breathe. How are you?
Yeah.
How am I? Connect.
Yeah.
Make it equal connection just as two human beings. I'm having a really busy week. How are you?
Yeah.
That connection that will set the tone for the rest of the meeting. And you can organize that by making that the first point on your agenda. So even if it doesn't come naturally, which I understand, like we're all busy and then you just want to talk about work. Let's talk about priorities. Let's talk about what you've done, to-dos, la, la, la. But if you just put that on the agenda, and I think that's where our superpower comes in by, hey, one, this is important and how do you organize it? And then advise and coach leaders to follow up on it. And that's, I think, then we can let it go again.
Yeah.
Connection before content. Right, so let's connect first. And then I think also as well, like when you start to bring that into meetings, whether you're doing like the traffic light system or what I've been doing recently is
what
like,
cat are you?
which cat are
I
you?
love
Or
that.
Like have a 9 grid of different animals and which one are you?
Not sure that would work for me, but
Or dog.
what's your
if you
spirit
like
animal?
dogs,
I like it.
But
It's funny, right? Even now, what this does, we're all smiling.
Yeah.
Everybody has a thing in the back of their heads, and I think that's where the other point of empathy. It's also about vulnerability, and even
exactly.
like being vulnerable as a leader, where when you talk about spirit animals, if it's a dog, if it doesn't matter. But what it does, it shows a little bit of a human side of you, which you are. And I think that's key. So that vulnerability as a leader combined with empathy is so powerful.
And what if a leader doesn't do it? Of course, what we just said, people maybe at the end of the day will quit. But what is before they quit the impact on employees? You think?
I think it's just it's opportunity cost almost. So you're losing a potential gain, in my humble opinion. So I think a lot of people talk about having people engaged, and I think we have if I may believe all the gurus, we have an entire generation of quiet quitters, or not so quiet, loud quitters, who are saying, "Hey, this is no longer for me. I don't feel engaged in work." And I think when we talk in our line of work, that is quite a buzzword, because what does that actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
So engagement to me is about, you can talk about vision, mission, and meaning in your job. That is important. That is important for engagement, having something interesting to do, being challenged enough, not being bored, but also not being burned out. And I think this is our bread and butter. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis. But as a fundamental thing for that, it is about empathy. So if you don't make space for that real human connection, if you don't make space for that little bit of empathy, that little bit of vulnerability, I think you're going to lose in your engagement score, if you will.
Your EMPS.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, because indeed, what I just mentioned, that Gallup said also that 70% of team engagements is really leading back to the manager. So the numbers don't lie. It's really a thing.
Yeah.
And what we say here is that we can kind of resolve it or bring that number down.
You also see like the statistic about mental health, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No
I know
worries.
you were going to go somewhere, but I was just thinking, it popped into my mind about how like your boss affects your mental health more than like every other factor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I do think, and we come across, like, we're all working in the field too, right? So this is not just three HR nerds talking about something theoretically. Like, we see this in practice.
True.
So whenever I talk about, I don't know, evaluations, I can have the best performance review plan. But if a manager doesn't show up with care, with empathy, with radical candor, if they don't show up like that, I can like buy the best software, have the perfect tailored tooling in place, but it doesn't come to life if that manager doesn't. So I think we're so dependent in everything we do on this manager community, and I think those numbers back it up.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we also see in our working lives. We can come up with the best ideas, but if managers don't carry that for us, then we're not making the progress we want.
You're making me think about, like when we're implementing HR tooling and new performance review processes, et cetera, But in the end, one thing I always say is like, it just comes down to the quality of the conversation between the manager and the employee.
Yeah, spot on.
But then another question, because let's say I'm a junior HR business partner, and I have to coach a manager that is maybe a bit too empathic. I'm not sure if you can be too empathic, but they really like rolling the employees in woolen blankets and really, oh no, it's okay, and take your time, and not setting really clear boundaries or I don't know, being too kind of way. So how can you handle a situation like that? Because that's the other side.
Because actually, it's funny that Roland mentioned radical candor earlier, right? And in the radical candor
Kim
quadrant,
Scott.
Kim Scott,
big fan.
One of the quadrants is ruinous empathy.
Yeah,
and is that what you just described there? Sounds like ruinous empathy to me.
Yeah.
So it's empathy, but ruinous empathy.
Okay, and let's say I have a manager that's showing this. How can I then, as an HR business partner, coach this manager to be less empathic?
Yeah, radical candor is a combination of being like brutally honest almost, while still caring for that person. And I think what she explained brilliantly, and that's I think where the ruinous empathy comes from, and that's a big misconception when it comes to this topic is that being empathetic means you're soft.
Yeah.
But on the contrary, I think if you're really being empathetic and you're caring for that person, you're going to tell them really honestly, hey, I saw your presentation. I think you're potentially great at this, but you talk too much.
Yeah.
And let me set an hour aside next week, because I've done a lot of presentations. Let's chat on how you can improve. And I'm going to spend some time with you because I think the potential is there, but you have room to grow. That's real empathy with real care versus someone who doesn't say anything. It's like, oh yeah, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. What are they going to say? And you hold back.
Yeah.
And you're withholding an opportunity for an employee, for one of your colleagues to actually grow.
Yeah.
So you're not doing them a favor by being too empathetic. I think Brené Brown said it brilliantly, clear is kind.
Yeah.
Where she advocates for being super honest about what's happening. But I think channeling then our Dutch directness a little bit in a good way with empathy, with care. I think there's a misconception on who are we serving. So there's this misconception that if you do right by your colleague or employee, it's bad for the employer and it's bad for business. But I think that's where the magic of our job comes in. If we do it right, we are always looking for that crossover to do what's right for the person and the employee, for our colleagues, and what's right for business. And in the best solutions, serve both equally. So this misconception of if I give you something, we have to pay for that. We have to, that's that type of thinking, us versus them. That's something we should battle actively, both in our fields, but also in the leadership team, where they feel like if we give them this, they will say that. Like that us versus them, that's not a thing. That's a concept in your head that's holding you back actually to do the right thing and serve the business well.
Us versus them. Interesting. I do have to say I did see it in some companies, and it's also like, what I find sometimes difficult, especially when you, for example, have a very dominant CEO, that you did, for example, all the numbers, all the analysis, and it's like, yeah, but if we now give them this tomorrow, they will come and ask for more, or I don't know. They also feel sometimes that if we implement something or do something, there's no way back.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find it difficult then to keep on going and keep pushing. But do you have any? You are both.
Well, like what you're making me think about is if I'm a leader of a company, right? Like I don't get out of bed and say, hey, how can I make my leaders more empathetic? Right? That's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about like revenue, investment, productivity.
Money.
But I think what Roland said really well is that the business agenda, right? And there's the people agenda, and we want to try to make them overlap as much as possible. So
true.
And so, for example, if you can explain what you're proposing in a language they understand. So I was doing this week. We want to invest this money here. What do we get out of that? And if you say, oh, well, it means that we're going to get higher employee lifetime value. So the employees will be more productive for a longer period of time. They will stay with us longer. And then you can start to see them thinking in a bit of a different way.
Yeah.
Talk beef, not spaghetti.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah. I didn't know that metaphor, but it does resonate. And I think it's our job to also translate that for CEOs because it's hard. Like they are looking at Excel sheets, which is understandable. So especially when you're working with a startup, with a certain runway, like I've been in that position where you look at our pay was 80% of our spend. So our burn rate, the easiest way to limit our burn rate was to just like let people go, because every dime we spent on people would eat away at our runway and our ability to actually get new investment. So I get that founder thinking, and it's our job to make that translation.
Yeah.
What I always say to leaders, especially in startups, is I don't know who coined this. It's not mine, but it's a saying that says, "Don't scar on the first cut." And a lot of CEOs are quite scarred because of what happened in the company, and they become cynical. And we know cynicism is poison for your company.
Yeah.
You have an open fridge. This is actually a real life example. You have an open fridge where you have beverages. One day you walk into the fridge and you see this person taking home 3 cans of soda because they think they earn it. I don't care what their thinking was. And I think it's our job to help people and CEOs not scar on the first cut, where you say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put a lock on that fridge.
Yeah.
We're going to put tellies on there. We're going to put cameras up. We're going to put, you know what? No more drinks. No more drinks. You can bring your own. That's scarring on the first cut.
And that's also how a lot of policies actually were born, right?
Exactly.
In HR, that you kind of punish the 95% for for the 5% of people that did something wrong. So
and you'll hear,
I do recognize it.
You'll hear CEOs say, but they can't be trusted. Let's take flexible working times. They can't handle that freedom. You know, like they need boundaries. They need clarity. They need, and for some companies that works like that. But that's not the issue. It's about trust. And I always encourage leaders to say, okay, but let's assume good intent. Let's assume that this is a human being, as the CEO, who doesn't get up in the morning and think, oh, I'm gonna make the life of my colleagues very miserable.
No.
And yes, there will be a few people, and that's a different type of conversation. Get rid of them as soon as possible, and I will help you do so. Yeah. That's not the issue. But get rid of those people so you can build a company where people thrive, which is based on trust. So you don't put a lock on your soda fridge.
No. And then indeed get rid of the 5% that is kind of the rotten apple of the basket.
Yeah, and even with them, like they didn't join with that mindset, probably. No. Something happened there. So I think there's always that look in the mirror when I talk to leaders, like, the first question is not how can we get rid of them? Because we will performance manage them. Like that's my job. I will coach the managers. Like that's B. A is how did that person get there, and how did we create an environment where people who joined enthusiastically have now ended up in a place where we think, actually we'd rather do it without you. That's a loss for the company, and feedback in itself. Yes, you still need to fix that situation. That's a different type of conversation. But that look in the mirror, which then creates a learning opportunity where you think like, actually, maybe we lack a little bit of empathy in how we do performance management. We actually don't create enough growth paths. We don't have enough perspective in our roles. So I think there's a lot to unpack, even with the rotten apples. I don't like talking about people like that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but it's common language. I think everybody knows what we're talking about.
No, because it also it is I think it's a metaphor because it also affects the others that are around them in the basket. So if you have one person that is like normally it's like get rid of it, but what you say is flip it around. How we can make sure that the apple is not going to rot in the first place. Yeah,
and you don't adjust your behavior based on what that person is doing. So you see this a lot of times with exits when someone's leaving. You see a little bit of nervousness coming into the
awkwardness.
Ask them not to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Like, do you really think they're not going to talk to their colleagues?
Yeah.
Are you really that naive? And do you not trust them to have a constructive conversation about what's happening here in the org? If you don't trust them, we have a different issue.
Yeah.
Your issue is not keeping everybody's mouth shut and channeling the communication lines. No. And I think that's where, again, going back to one of my heroes, Brené Brown, when she talked about clear kind and how she talks about leadership, it's always about being authentic, about being empathetic, about being super honest, even if it's a message that's not that good of a message, where you say, hey, we screwed up, or hey, this person's leaving, it sucks. That always helps more than telling people, hush, hush, don't talk to them.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, and I think also what you're saying is that what you were talking about the rotten apples before, right? But this is the thing about being clear and kind is, has anyone told them they're a rotten apple, right? Because sometimes you're not aware of your own behaviors, or at least you're not aware of the impact of your own behaviors. And I think, like you said, Roland, most people have good intentions. Yeah. This happened to me, when I've been given some feedback and I was like, wow, I didn't really see it that way. I wasn't even thinking. And then I completely turned my behavior around. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are cases always where you have to say goodbye, and usually that's because you realize it's not a fit longer term. But I think also there are these cases that you can turn around if you are empathetic, if you see their perspective, believe they have good intentions, and
The one question in my head that pops in is like how. So, for example, I have a person in my team, and that person has something in their private life, and therefore they refuse to come to the office.
Okay.
the manager finds it a bit difficult. Like, ooh, how should I approach? I don't want to push, kind of rolling them in the cotton blanket, maybe. How should you then approach like situation like this? Because you don't want to, probably this person didn't wake up and thought, wait, I'm gonna not going to the office anymore because I hate it there. There is something going on. So how, for the listeners, step by step, should you approach a situation like that? Because I think this type of situation HR professionals have daily.
So my first answer would be is I believe in a very clear split between work and personal life.
Yeah.
As managers, I will never ask them to be a therapist. I will never ask them to be a psychologist. It's not your job.
No.
It's not part of the job description.
No.
You're not trained to be it. So let's also not make any assumptions, and you don't have to. So all you need to do, I'm now quoting my fingers, all you need to do is show up with empathy, with care. How are you doing? How can I help? Let's get you the help you need. Yeah. And that's where the buck stops in terms of your response. Well, it makes it very clear, because I think when we're talking about rolling them into a blanket, I think it's this being empathetic doesn't mean you need to overstretch where you, and I even said this to some of my managers I work with, like, I talk about them, they're going through divorce, and I was like, that's not your job.
No.
And you can also have your personal boundaries there a little bit, where you're like, hey, this is quite personal also for me, and I feel like we're getting into a territory where I am your manager.
Yeah.
And my job, and that's signposting, my job for you is to ensure you get the help you need within the boundaries we have here within this company. And if that doesn't work, I will make it work, because we want to take care of you. We want to make sure you're all right. And that's also our duty of care as an employer. But there's also a limit to that.
Yeah.
So in this case, this would mean, okay, this person is going through something.
Yeah.
Okay, then the policies are you sick? Okay, then you go to the arbeids. And that our arbeids says you need to take 4 to 6 weeks off, or you can work 10%, or an advice comes on the table. And then the job of the manager is to implement that advice. If it's not sickness, then what is it? Are you going through something tough? Okay, maybe we have a policy where you say we have bereavement leave, or we have a leave policy. That's a benefits question. So allowing that manager to lean on some of the structures and policies, that's also our job, to ensure and to ensure and stress test if those structures and policies work.
Yeah.
And there will be edge cases where you run into, hey, actually, we're not doing right by this person. But that's often a crossroads where you ask, or are we overarching? And maybe we should be, with radical candor, saying, hey, sorry, this is what we can offer. Yeah. And if that means coming into the office, that's not up for debate. And I'm going to be really honest with you. It's going to hurt your career. It's going to hurt you coming back, because we believe connection is key. How can I make this work for you? Why don't we limit that to 3 hours, like 2 meetings max for now, for the coming 4 weeks, and reevaluate in 4 weeks. And I think that's where, again, I wouldn't ask for a manager to come up with ideas like that. That's where we come in with advice, with coaching, with tailor-made solutions. But the starting point is, you're not a therapist. You don't need to fix anything for that other person. We're their employer, and we have a duty of care, but there's a limit to that. Yeah. And being honest about that often helps. Where you're like, hey, this is what I can do for you. This is what I can't do for you. Often creates space with like, okay, that actually makes sense. And if they don't agree, that's also not your problem.
No, and it's empathic, and it is consistent, and it is clear.
And it's fair.
So it's kind.
Because, and you should always leave room for edge cases where the policies don't work. That's not the point. And even adjust the policies if edge cases pile up where you think, actually, this is a structural issue. All true. But if this doesn't match what this person needs, there are tons of jobs. This is what we do. We think this is fair, and we're being consistent across. So this person A doesn't get a different treatment than this person B. There's also an equality aspect to some of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's also our job to empower the leaders to be a good leader.
Absolutely.
To help them,
Or challenge status quo. If you think the office is BS, then have that conversation. But
no, I've had that before when the leader of the company is saying, hey, we want everyone back in the office, or at least 4 days a week. And it's like, well, this is not like the nicest office. If you want people to come here, let's improve the office. if you're saying people are not collaborating as well, I went into the meeting room, there's no video conferencing equipment, right?
Yeah.
So how about we invest in that first before we make everyone come back to the office?
Yeah.
So also the issue might be somewhere else, indeed.
But one thing that just pops in my mind when we talk about more flexibility, core hours, whatever, and it's about clarity. I mean, it's also what I think personally, what I see at organizations is that a lot of leaders struggle with is setting clear goals and clear things that people should reach. And that is why they feel like they cannot trust, because it's not really measurable sometimes, the impact and the output of someone. And that is why I believe sometimes they're like, okay, then come to the office because then I can see and monitor if you're actually working.
Yeah.
So there's quite a gap there, right? And if we resolve that, I think some companies already do.
I think you're actually onto something here when we talk about beautiful basics.
Yeah.
The boring basics.
The boring basics,
so, when I walk up to a manager, and I love this exercise, and I ask them, so what does this person do, to your opinion, on a day-to-day basis? Like, describe a week to me. And I do the same thing of that actual colleague. You will hear two completely different stories on how they spend their time, what their priorities are. And I think this goes to one of the beautiful basics. If you cannot reach implicit expectations. It's impossible to do well if you have no idea what good looks like.
No.
And this sounds so simple that I sometimes have to repeat this for myself. You cannot meet implicit if you don't tell people what you think, what you want, what you expect. It's impossible for them to do well. And talking about beautiful basics, expectation setting is a boring exercise. I hate it. Goal setting, same. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
No.
So that boring basics, if you don't have that in place, evaluations make no sense. Promotions make no sense. You will get stuck in salary raises. You will get stuck in a performance conversation where someone's not doing well because you're telling them, you're not doing well. So based on what expectations are you telling me this?
Yeah.
So if you mess that boring bit up and you skip that because you saw a fancy tool that has a few AI-generated thingies in there, but it's not meeting the real life day-to-day work, you're going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a great example of a boring basic that a lot of people skip because it's so hard.
You're reminding me of a really good quote I heard, which is, unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments.
Ooh.
Do you get it? So unspoken expectations are premeditated resentment.
Yeah.
So if I have an expectation about you and I don't actually say it, then I get mad about you not doing it. It's like, well, you didn't even know. I can't read your mind. No. And I think it's the same at work, right? Like if we don't set the goal, then how can you expect someone to hit it? And also as well, what you're talking about earlier, Roland, I sometimes do this with people when they're struggling with productivity time management. You sit them down and say, okay, cool. Like you just said, hey, what does your average week look like? Go through it.
Hour by hour.
How much time do you spend? Just like, okay, how much percentage on this? And then you can actually say, you know what, this 10% here is not adding any impact at all. This 50% where you're doing this or doing that, just focus on these three things. Yeah. And then we always say in the leadership meeting, like move the needle, right? But if you focus on that, that's what's going to drive impact.
But I think this is something that a lot of leaders don't do.
No, they don't.
They really don't, right?
So also because it's super hard.
It's very hard, yeah.
I think the reason why people skip it is because it's hard, because it also forces you to, okay, where does this company needs to be in 2 years from now? A lot of CEOs struggle with that. If you don't have a clear vision, a clear mission, something in mind, it's impossible to let that trickle down towards like actual job expectations. So I think it already starts at the top where people are struggling with what they're doing, and you will see that shine through
and make decisions.
Exactly. So a lot of things when you run into issues in teams, it's a reflection of what's happening on the leadership level. So I always start there. It's like, do you know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? Because if not, then that's where we start. Yeah. And they always say, no, but Roland, you're from Google. Tell us the secret sauce. This is the secret sauce. Yeah. It's simple as this. There's no magic. There's no secret spell. It's the hard, boring work that will get you there. Because it is the 80%. If you don't have your 80% in order, the rest doesn't matter. You can hire baristas, software.
Massages.
You can go to Bali with the whole company. It doesn't mean shit if you don't have this.
No. Clarity, consistency, empathy. Okay, let's go to the dilemma because it kind of resonates. We have a dilemma for you. Would you rather have a leader who always pushes you to hit ambitious targets but forgets to ask how you're doing? Or a leader who checks on you on your well-being consistently but never sets clear goals?
The first one.
Yeah, same for me.
I share the same.
Yeah. But I do think we all want the first one, but a lot of people don't do the first one, but do the second one. They check in on well-being and they're like being very...
But you know what? It's making me think about this whole like radical candor empathy side, right? And then, right? Or if they sit you down and say, you know what, you're not performing, then, or you are performing, could even be, like, I much prefer that because then I know where I am.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Cool,
doesn't matter. Yeah, chill, yo. Yeah. And then half year later, you're not getting a raise.
Yeah.
Because
like,
you don't perform.
So it's like, I'd much rather say, hey, we're going in this direction. I need you on board. This is going to be tough. Can you make it? I'd much rather that conversation.
Yeah. Set clear expectations.
Yeah.
But that's difficult.
And I think this is also where true leadership shows that everybody has different needs. So I always said this to my manager at Google, is I'm really bad at receiving compliments. And if someone's too appreciative, I start to like, do you really? Is it genuine? Like, and maybe that's a real Dutch thing, but I'd rather hear really tough, honest feedback where that actually makes me feel seen more as an individual, because I feel like, hey, apparently you're seeing the potential in me. You're seeing something I could reach, and I'm not reaching it. So actually, that's a compliment in itself that you're seeing me like that.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, you did the presentation so well. I was like, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I've been presenting for quite some time.
Yeah.
I know I can present. So I think there's a difference to every individual, which is super hard. And I think that's where we also need to have a little bit of grace for leaders. If you have a team of 12, if you're on a C-level seat and you need to have these preferences per person, like that's super hard. So let's give those managers a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
That they can't flex their style and have your tailor-made menu for every one-on-one.
No.
But for that, and I think that's where we come back to our little trick in the one-on-one agenda, I do need that space that if I'm not well, that I know that I can bring it up. But I'm adult enough and I have enough people at home to confirm my self-worth. I don't need my manager for that. No. And I think that's where an issue is. What I'm seeing for a lot of people, that if other stuff in life is messy and is hard and is scrappy, that they bring that into the workplace. And again, I think that's where the boundary comes in. Your manager is not your father.
No.
They will not fix your daddy issues. If there's something up, I want you to tell me. Like, we're all adults, we're equals. Tell me. I'm not going to ask you every one-on-one because I don't have time for that. Let's go. But when you're working with a more junior person where they're not used to like being in the workplace yet, telling their manager they actually need a day off because they have a funeral and they're scared that will like creep into the evaluation, yeah, you need to go that extra mile as a manager, show up with more empathy. So I think this answer is always layered, and good leaders will recognize what this person needs. And at a certain level, at some point you can expect that people will tell you what they need instead of having to guess, oh, do you need a day off? Do you like I think that's where seniority is recognized.
It sounds to me like you're talking about situational leadership, right? Yeah. So depending on the situation, depending on the person.
Word.
Because for example, even with feedback conversations, right? Sometimes I might have, my plan was to come in with this direct feedback conversation, then I have to switch into a different mode and say, actually, no, I need to encourage this person. Or actually, no, I need to coach this person. So you have to think about, also deal with what happens when you get into the conversation as well.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about what you're saying about when people are more senior and they just at 3 p.m. go, I need to go get my kids.
Yeah.
Great. They were just very direct and clear.
You do you.
I need to go get my kids.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I'm the manager, what can I do? Nothing. Like, bye. Okay. See you later.
Good luck. True.
And I think this does go back to one of these boring basics is if we don't know what exactly is expected and we don't have clear set goals, it's impossible to know when you're done.
Yeah.
When's the last time you closed your laptop and felt, I'm done for today?
Yeah.
Especially as HR people. Like, there's always another email. There's always another meeting. So having a clear view on when your week is done with a clear and set priority list that you checked in with your manager, a clear set of to-dos that you actually finished, then yeah, it can happen that at 3 p.m. you're done. But it can also happen that at 8 p.m., you open up your laptop again, you think, I'm not done yet. And I committed to a few of these deliverables and I'm going to do it. So I think that's where seniority comes in, where you can trust people with a clear set of expectations. And if you have that rapport, you can trust them to finish their work.
Okay, thank you both. I think for me, the key takeaways of this conversation is make sure your leaders can bring clarity, empathy and consistency to your team. And then probably, if all goes well, engagement will go up. And also people will thrive in their jobs. Yeah. Thank you so much, Roland, for joining us on this podcast. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode, please leave a 5-star review. And Personio, thank you for sponsoring this one. See you next month. Bye-bye.